أهلا وسهلا بالجميع ومساء الخير، وكتير بيسعدنا نشوف وجوه مألوفة علينا وأيضاً وجوه جديدة. بس لو بطلب من الكل يتفضلوا لو سمحتوا عشان نبدأ وما نتأخر، نحاول نمشي على الجدول. مرحباً في حفل تكريم رواد وأبطال جودة الخدمة في الكويت سنة 2015، اللي مبنية على مؤشر المستهلكين لجودة الخدمة اللي قائم فيها سيرفيس هيرو. أنا فاتن أبو-غزالة من شركة سيرفيس هيرو، برحب فيكم جميعاً، ونيابة عن فريق خيال الاستشارات اللي هي الشريك التنفيذي للمؤشر. يسعدني وجودنا اليوم. بس نبذة عن شركة خيال، هي المسؤولة عن جميع كل الشغل على تصميم الموقع الإلكتروني المؤشر من حيث الإحصاء وأيضاً الدعاية والإعلان. أولاً بحب أحيي مجموعة من العملاء الموجودين معنا الليلة. المستهلكين في مؤشرنا هم القاعدة الأساسية لجمع البيانات، بدونهم ما إلنا إحنا أي قيمة، فمنحييهم اللي موجود منهم واللي مش موجود للدور الفعال اللي بياخدوه بإبداء رأيهم عن جودة الخدمة، لأنه هم مؤمنين إنه صوتهم رح يكون مسموع. الترحيب الثاني اللي بحب أعمله هو لإلكم، لممثلين الشركات الموجودين الليلة. أنتوا أفضل من 90% من شركات الكويت، أنتوا نخبة الكويت، 10% من الشركات الأحسن شركات بترتيب جودة الخدمة هي حضراتكم، فمنهنيكم على هذا الإنجاز. كمان برحب أصدقائنا من الصحافة اللي بيساعدونا بتسليط الضوء ورفع الوعي على أهمية الاهتمام بجودة الخدمة. بحب أحيي ضيفة الشرف الليلة اللي جاي خصيصاً من الولايات المتحدة للحديث معنا، رح أعرفها فيما بعد. وأخيراً بحب أحيي وأشكر اللجنة الاستشارية لسيرفيس هيرو اللي واقفين معنا منذ أن بدأنا عشان يتأكدوا من 3 شغلات، وإحنا نتأكد من 3 شغلات: إننا محايدين، وإنه المعلومة اللي بنعطيكم إياها هي دقيقة، وآخر شيء إنه المعلومة ذات قيمة لإلكم. رغم اعتزازي بلغتي العربية وبكوني عربية، اسمحوا لي أن أنتقل الآن إلى الإنجليزي، واللي حابب يحصل على ترجمة، عنا ترجمة فورية، فبس الرجاء إبلاغ حدا من الفريق إنكم بدكم سماعات. Good evening and welcome to Service Hero's 6th annual awards. I see a smile of relief of some of the expats here. So this is the 6th year of celebrating excellence, and it really is very, very happy for us to see so many familiar places of companies that have been pushing the envelope since we started in 2010. I'd like to welcome you. I'm Fatin Abu-Ghazaleh from Service Hero, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of our team as well as Khayal Consultants, who are the exclusive licensee to run and operate the index, which means the website, the digital communication, the branding, and also the survey engine and the statistical model behind it is run by that company. I'd like to give a shout out to any consumers that are here today, or even if they aren't with us. We really value their voice because their voice is being heard. I'd also like to congratulate all companies that are here tonight, because you represent the top 10 companies in Kuwait. Of over 300 listed in our index across 17 categories. You really are heroes, whether you walk away with a prize tonight or not. Thank you to members of the press for coming, and I'd also like to welcome Jumana Abu-Ghazaleh, who will be our keynote speaker, who's flown in from very warm New York City, and she's enjoying the cold here. And then finally, advisory council members, we couldn't survive without you. You help us stay on top of our game. You help us stay credible, neutral, and also to provide information that's valid. So I'm going to be following the agenda. You should have the agendas on the tables in front of you tonight. And what I thought we would start with is, how does the index work? How do we collect the votes? And when somebody lands on servicehero.com, what happens? So before I share that, I know we always get asked the question, how do people hear about Service Hero? What makes them arrive to the landing page of servicehero.com? And we do a number of things. We've built, obviously, a very active database of consumers who take the time to rate brands, so that's one way. We're also active with online banners, online advertising, social media posts, and as well, we invite companies and encourage companies to invite their own customers to vote with their own online banners as well as SMSs and email shots. So that's what happens to get people to our website. And when they get to our website, we're going to see a small video of how it operates. Okay, so I'm happy tonight to share some of the lessons learned from the index. I'm going to spend a few minutes sharing what we've seen from the data this year. And then we're going to follow that with some new features that we've introduced to the index. But before we start, I'd like you to think for a moment, can you, in your various companies, quantify the financial impact of focusing on service excellence? I don't mean just the costs, but the added benefit, the revenue that comes in from the ability to attract new customers and have them come again. I wonder how many of you actually have a metric that enables you to quantify the increased retention, the higher cross-sell rate, the longer relationship with a customer who stays with you. And I think one of the ways that we can demonstrate this the best is a study that the American Customer Satisfaction Index has conducted. And as you know, they are our partners. We run our index in tandem with them, and our scores are weighted and vetted according to their methodology as well. And they have conducted a study which is available on their website, theasci.org, under financial indicators, where they've decided to take a hypothetical $100 and invested the first set of $100 or the first $100 in the top Standard & Poor companies in the US and the UK, where they run their index. And they've seen this $100 over the span of 15 years and how much it's appreciated. The second $100 was invested in the top winners or the top scoring brands in the categories in the ACSI index. And over a span of 15 years, the top line that you see in the chart, reaching around $700, is the ACSI hand-picked fund. We've shared this before. We've had Dr. Forrest speak about this, but it's such an impactful story, telling you that stock market prices have a direct correlation to service excellence. And when you think about the companies that are in the top line, they're companies like Apple, like Amazon, like the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, like Lexus. So when I say these names, it makes sense. These are, in fact, industry leaders. And they're leaders because they have an unwavering focus on customers. So this is the first, I think, introduction on why excellence matters. Because we do say customer satisfaction and excellence, but many times we really forget how important it is and what the impact is. So now I'm going to switch to sharing some of the lessons learned, and I'd like to explain what this means. Last year, on January 1st until the end of the year, we opened up our voting, and it's open, of course, because it's an online survey, it's open every single day of the year, 24 hours a day. And so we've collected at the end of the year just under 20,000 assessments covering all of the different categories in Kuwait. Now we take these 20,000 assessments and we have them flagged in our system using different indicators to identify whether they're suspicious and need further investigation. And they are run through a series of filters. In fact, there are 13 filters that we have to authenticate each and every record. So at the end of the period, we have removed unauthenticated votes, and we have a final data set of just around 15,000 assessments. What this represents on a Kuwait level is a very strong confidence level that the error margin is plus or minus 3%. In fact, on a national scale, it's plus or minus 2%, not 3%. But on category levels, because the samples are smaller, it is plus or minus 3%. So I just wanted to stress to you that it really is our job, it's our obsession to ensure that we're reporting the truth and nothing but the truth. So having seen that, what have we seen in the past 6 years? We've seen, to simplify all the data, because we collect so much data and we have so many data points and there's so many things that are measured in the index, the simplest way to look at it is this concept of having 3 peaks. So peak number 1 is, what are customers expecting from me to deliver? What do they want from us? I'm coming to an auto dealership, I'm coming to a bank, I'm going to an airline. What does this customer expect from me to offer them? So that's the first peak, expectation. Peak number 2 is, how am I delivering on these expectations? Am I able to fulfill them? And if so, am I doing a good job about it? And then the third peak is, in the process of serving my customers, have I made them like me? Or have I made them dislike me? Or do they have no feeling? And so this third peak is the peak of loyalty. And so what I'd like to share with you is these 3 peaks and how they are evidenced in the research that we have. So I'm going to start with expectation. And as you know, we're measuring on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is the perfect score. And so on a expectation, for those of you in the back, I hope that you can see it, it's an 8.21. 8.21 from a scale of 10 means that there's very healthy expectations for service in Kuwait. People think service is pretty good, and so their expectation is that they will continue to receive pretty good service. So this is a very healthy indicator. Now let's move to looking at satisfaction, which we said is the second important peak or data point. And for satisfaction, we see a score on a national level averaging all 300 companies, all 17 categories, and all 8 dimensions of service that we measure. We have a score of 7.88. From a scale of 10, that's not too bad. At the same time, that, as you can see, there's a gap. So people are expecting more than we are able to deliver. And that gap of 0.3 might seem significant, but in reality, scientifically, it isn't too significant. The gap is significant when it exceeds 4 and 5. And because it's normal for people to have higher expectations than they actually get. And very rarely do we match our expectations, and even more rarely, unless a brand that we're dealing with is new, do we have no expectation or low expectations and we're pleasantly surprised. So the norm is this pattern: higher expectations, slightly lower satisfaction. Now, how about the third peak, loyalty? So we've seen a loyalty index of 7.91, which is just a tiny bit higher than the satisfaction index. Now, that's a little bit strange. Usually loyalty is slightly lower than satisfaction. So one of the things that we've seen is that companies have done a good job engaging with their customers in a way that's built a relationship. So that's good. The reason that we see a slight difference where the gap, where the loyalty score is higher, is because companies have enabled customers to forgive them for mistakes. If we continue to see satisfaction at a lower score, a bigger gap, then we'll see loyalty drop, because loyalty takes time to move. You like somebody, you forgive them if they make a mistake, but you won't forgive them for a very long time, and if they make a mistake, eventually your satisfaction with them and your loyalty will be impacted. So I just want to remind you, always think of these 3 peaks: expectation, satisfaction, and then customer loyalty. And we'll be talking about these throughout the evening. I'm going to move now to looking at the service dimensions, and in terms of primarily, what do customers expect from us to deliver? And so when we're looking at the expectation index, which is the first chart we're going to look at, it's the 8 service dimensions that we're measuring on a national level. We've already seen that the gap is 0.3, top bar in green, that's the national gap. So we are not meeting expectations to the range of 0.3, but we've already said that's not a problem. But where do we see a problem? It's the bottom two indicators. We're really not delivering on what people expect for speed, which has a gap of 0.4, and value for money, which has a gap of 0.5. And so immediately, as managers, we'll say, okay, we need to investigate what does value for money mean. It's not just price, we know that. It's not as simple as just price. It's promotion, it's packaging, it's loyalty programs, it's the whole offering. And then the second question that we ask ourselves is, what does speed actually mean? Is it the before, the during, and the after? All three. So those are the types of questions we should have, because we do have a problem in these two. And now let's take a look at, we've seen expectation for these dimensions. Let's take a look at actual satisfaction. And we'll see that satisfaction actually scores pretty well for two factors, staff attitude and also location. So companies in Kuwait are doing a very good job recruiting people with the right attitude to serve people. So people who are friendly, engaging, etc., because staff attitude is scoring above an 8. Same for location. Again, let's take a look at the very bottom line. Value for money, that is the lowest scoring, and it's a 7.62. So immediately, again, one might easily come to the conclusion, we have a big gap, it's on value for money, and it's also for speed. Those are, well, at least value for money is an area we should concentrate on. But then what we do is another step with the data, and we put the data into a model to see correlations, because so far we haven't talked about importance. Which of the 8 dimensions on the screen do you think is the most important to consumers? What do you think is going to really drive their overall satisfaction? Is it staff or location? Is it value for money? Or is it something else? So when we put the data into our model for this, we understand, excuse me, I think I jumped a slide. We understand which is the most influential. So here, all we've done is a simple correlation analysis. We put the 8 dimensions and how correlated they are to overall satisfaction. And you'll see immediately here that the first and foremost influencer on overall satisfaction for all brands and categories in Kuwait is reliability and accuracy. And that's actually not a surprise if you think about it with a little bit more depth. For me to rate a brand and be satisfied, they have to be consistent. And they also have to know how to handle mistakes when mistakes happen, or handle things that are a little bit out of the box. So reliability is fundamentally important for overall satisfaction, and it's to the tune of 29%. The second factor that is very important is also related to quality, and it's product or service quality, impacting to the tune of 20%. I want you to look for value for money. Remember, we said value for money was the lowest indicator and had a big gap. In the scheme of things, value for money doesn't really impact overall satisfaction. It only has a weight of 9%. So again, for companies, what does that tell us? That tells us if we understand which dimension is the most important, then we can build programs to ensure that we are addressing these concerns and building satisfactory customers. So that's all we're going to share with you in terms of the dimensions, but it is important to understand them. I do have to say, when we run this data, and we run it for many clients in many industries, we see a different pattern depending on the category. So maybe fast food, speed is more important, for example. I don't know if that's the case, I'm just throwing it out there. And maybe in fine dining, it's the quality of the meal. So it will differ by category. It will also differ by brand, if a brand is a market leader or a smaller brand and it's a follower in the market. So these patterns will shift. So now I'm going to take you to just a few seconds on demographics and understanding who our most demanding customers are. If we understand that, and if there are customers that we serve, then we need to know how to serve them. So every year we share this data, and it's relatively the same pattern. First, I'm going to excuse me for the tongue twister there. I'm going to share the scores that are the highest, that are scoring above an 8. And they are females. We're very happy people, apparently our gender. Younger people, so 16 to 17-year-olds, and also high school students. These are the demographic groups that happen to have the highest satisfaction. Let's look at the people with the least satisfaction. It's not a surprise that the lowest satisfaction of all the groups is master or PhD holders. So these are people who are sophisticated enough that have checklists in their minds about how service should be and how it should be offered, and therefore are less tolerant for mistakes, less tolerance for poor quality. So, and also males are also less satisfied. I'd love to hear the theory on that, but we have our own. Okay, I'm going to move now to looking at the section that probably is interesting most of you here, given that you represent the companies. So we're going to take a look at the 17 categories that we're measuring in the index and share some insight on those categories. The first chart we're going to look at is satisfaction. And we have some very healthy categories in Kuwait. Already the fact that Kuwait's average score, which is that green line, is a 7.88, tells us that it's an economy that's doing well. But then when we have, from Islamic banks upwards, and I believe there's 7 categories, scoring above an 8, that's really strong. That means these are categories where all the brands relatively are outperforming each other, are really pushing, the boundaries in terms of how can we excite and serve customers. Now let's take a look at the bottom of the categories, and I feel sorry for anyone here that's in the communication industry, because the lowest 2 are ISPs, I see a smile here, are ISPs and mobile operators. It's sad to see them at the bottom because they have always been at the bottom. And there is a theory to this. If you think about us, none of us could survive without our mobile phone, right? So if you're in the middle of a call and the phone goes dead, you're going to be very intolerant. Same with internet bandwidth. If it goes dead, you're not going to be a very happy person. So these are living with us all the time, and that might be the reason that people are less tolerant to the mistakes that they have. Having seen the scores by category, I'm going to shift now to looking at what we've seen in the past 5 years, or 6 years, excuse me. Last year, I remember standing up on our stage and saying that 7.93 is the highest we've reached, and it's probably the last time we see that level. And that's true. Last year was higher than this year. This year we have a 7.88 score compared to 7.93. I want you to think of why that is. Partly it's because humans are greedy. We're greedy. We want better all the time. You fly first class, you want the service to stay better, and if not, get even better than that. It reminds me of the story of those of you who remember the fable from childhood, Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack threw magic beans, a magical tree grew. He climbed that tree all the way up, as high up as he could go. And at the top of the tree, there was a giant who had golden coins. But the giant wanted to kill Jack, but Jack stole those coins and went down. And then the next day, he went up again. Because, why? He's greedy. We are greedy. And so the message for us in service excellence and managing that is, if you think you've done a good job, think again, improve. And so that's why we have the score dipping slightly this year. In terms of looking at it over categories, we have one category in particular that has really pushed the limit in terms of improvement. We have 3 categories that have dropped. 2 of them we're not too concerned with because they're healthy categories. So the one that's really pushed the limit is car service, grown by 20%. For the dealerships in Kuwait, I know there's a very high level of competition, especially in the automotive sector. And possibly, especially because the automotive sector is under a lot of influence. And if you recall 2 slides ago, and I don't think I pointed it out, new car sales for the first time had topped our index. It was the best scoring category. So I know the dealers are under pressure to sell, and so they're going out of their way to think of inventive ways to woo new customers. Same with car service, because of course they're very linked together. If we look down the list to the very bottom, the one that worries us the most is ISPs, because in 2010, ISPs were doing better than they're doing today. I don't know if it's to do with the Ministry of Communication infrastructure, or there's more to it, or companies just don't really care, but there is room to make a considerable improvement in that sector if you're already there. It's not too difficult to start making that improvement. And I'm going to end, in terms of looking at data, with the Net Promoter Score. The Net Promoter Score is looking at how many people love us and how many people don't like us. And it basically says the more people that love us, the score is going to be higher and positive. So let's take a look at the score for Kuwait overall, which is the green line, and then for the different categories. In the green line, you'll see Kuwait is scoring at 28% in terms of NPS. that is okay. We've seen higher levels in the past. We've seen NPS at the range of 32 was the highest we've ever seen in the past 6 years. But 28% is pretty good. That means 28% of customers in Kuwait are brand ambassadors. It's also in line with international standards for NPS, not too different. Look at the two top lines. For those of you who are automotive, more power to you. You're really doing a good job in ensuring that you are making your customers like you. It might be just communicating with customers. It really doesn't, it's not very hard to make customers like you. It's just treating them as you want to be treated yourself. It's just as simple as that. So the automotive industry is clearly doing an exceptional job there with NPS scores of 47% and 46%. Cafes, not surprising, have high NPSs. Again, let's look at towards the bottom of the index. We see ISPs with the only NPS in all the categories. -5 means that they have way many more people that don't like them than they have people who like them. That's a real problem because, and I'm sure you're all experts in this, people who don't like you tell 1 million people. People who like you will tell 1 or 2 people. So you've really got to be careful about that. Dissatisfied, detracting customers are very noisy. And the ones that like you are not as noisy. And so word of mouth will spread the wrong way if you don't take care of NPS. So that concludes looking at the data set for this year. I'm happy now to just share a few features that we've introduced to Service Hero. And we've introduced them because, like you, we need to improve our offering. Like you, we cannot stand still, and we need to make sure that we are catering to the 2 diverse customer segments that we are dealing with. One customer segment is consumers, the voters, the people that go to the banks and the airlines, etc. But the other group is obviously mostly the audience tonight, which are company executives. And so we need to make sure that we cater to the 2 groups. So we've introduced 3 sets of features. I'm going to speak about the user features very quickly in the beginning. User features are customer features that we have introduced, such as a star rating, a category scoreboard, transparent publication of comments open to the public, and showing trend lines. And we've done this because we've done a lot of qualitative research with our consumers to ask them why they are rating brands and what do they want to learn from the index. And we've learned 2 things. The first is that they are rating brands because they want to be heard, and they're asking us, are they listening to us? And we were quiet because the truth of the matter is not all companies are listening to what consumers are saying. The second one is, if I rate a brand, what's in it for me? I mean, what do I get out of the index? So for that reason, we decided to be much more open in how we convey information. And what I'd like to do now is share a video on these new features, a very short video, so that you see how they play. Okay, so that was the set of features designed to give more value to our consumers. I'm going to move now to the second set of features, which are designed for companies. And as you saw in the video, your comments, people's comments about your brand are now public. We have some brands and categories with tens and tens of comments, and some of them with smaller comments. Obviously, it depends on the brand. But the idea here is that they're now on a public platform that can be viewed by anyone else, that can be rated by anyone else as agree, disagree. And so we encourage you to engage with these customers, and so we've designed an engagement dashboard that allows you to see these comments, sort them, respond to them, flag them, and I think, again, the best way to show you this is not me speaking, but seeing a video on it. Okay, so the engagement dashboard is designed to address two of the peaks that we spoke about, or three of the peaks. Customers expect us to respond to their complaints or their praise. It increases their satisfaction with time. And most importantly, by engaging one-to-one with your customers, you increase their liking of you, so therefore loyalty. So we really do encourage customers to participate in the engagement dashboard. The last service I wanted to talk about that we're offering is the quarterly index, and this is in line with our partners, the American Customer Satisfaction Index, who also run quarterly indices. So what does this do? This helps you have information in a more timely manner so that you can have fast action programs instead of waiting for a full year to see the final report. And of course, everything that I'm sharing with you now is based on very detailed category and brand reports where you can see your brand's position compared to its peers and how it's improved over time. So the quarterly index allows you to see that in a much faster manner. And also, we've introduced something else, again in line with the ACSI, which the ability to add customized questions. So the customized questions component of the feature is asking questions that are outside of the norm of what we are asking, in addition to what we're asking. These could be things like, rate my loyalty program, or rate my social media responsiveness, or rate how contemporary my branches look like. You can think of a number of things. We have some suggested questions we also encourage you to consider. And so again, it allows you to use the same platform in a way that provides more value to you. So the last announcement that I have, in addition to the user features and the company features, is a very happy moment for us, which is our geographic expansion. And we're really happy about this because when we started Service Hero in 2010, it really was our vision to help make people's lives easier by helping provide information to companies to provide better service. And so the UAE is our first launch outside of Kuwait, and there will be expansion in other markets as well. But in the UAE, we've started a smaller phase. It's focusing on some segments, and then we'll be adding with time. And we're really happy by the traction that we're getting there in terms of responsiveness from companies on having an index. I'd like to wrap up with two tips, basically. And the tips are basic. The first one is making sure everything that we've been talking about this evening is about understanding customers and fulfilling customer needs. So I'm going to share a very quick story about, excuse me, I'm trigger happy, it seems like. about a restaurant in the US, a series of restaurants, Union Hospitality Group. They run 5 of the top 10 restaurants in New York City. And that's not an easy feat. I mean, New York City is huge, and for them to have 5 of the top 10 is considerably important. They have their founder, Danny Mayers, very famous in the restaurant industry, has 2 cornerstones to his philosophy. The first one is about engaging with your team, your staff, making sure they understand what you have to do. They have very high loyalty in their restaurants, and our keynote speaker, Jemana, when she comes on, will be speaking about this point at much more length. So cornerstone number 1 is staff engagement, and the second one is engaging with customers, and so they've introduced the ABCD policy. ABCD sounds funny, looks funny, is always be collecting dots. And the dots are pieces of information about a customer that helps serve them better. For example, his staff are trained to look at customers as they come into the restaurant and see, kind of read their body language. So if somebody looks anxious and not comfortable, they're trained to ask in the right manner what's wrong. And if they've learned that the customer forgot their mobile phone in the cab, which happens very frequently, or forgot their wallet in the office, believe it or not, they are empowered and trained to fulfill that problem. So they go out of their way to get the mobile phone delivered, and they go out of their way to take care of the bill for the customer. So think of it in the terms of the 3 peaks that we've talked about in the beginning. What does this do to a customer's expectation? I didn't expect the restaurant to go get my wallet or take care of my phone that was in the cab. That really takes expectations, shoots it through the roof. What does it do to satisfaction? Obviously, they're highly satisfied. But most importantly, what does it do to loyalty? Am I going to go back to that restaurant? You bet. If they took care of me that way, if they figured out what was wrong with me, then definitely that's a restaurant that I'm going to go to again and again. That's why the restaurants are leading among the restaurants in New York City. So to conclude, I'd like to remind you all, it really is, with all the data that we collect, with everything that you get, involved in day to day, it really is the 3 peaks. Expectations, understand them. Satisfaction, know how to deliver on them, build plans to do that, and then build loyalty for the long run. And it's simple if you just think of your customers and also your team.